Hello everybody, this is Chuck and welcome to Chuck's Diecast Car and Model Reviews. Today we're going to be taking a look at this car. For most people who know anything about racing, particularly vintage racing, this is a car that needs almost no introduction. This is the Porsche 917. More properly, this one is known as the Porsche 917K, which the K stands for Kurz, meaning that that means short in German. It has a short tail. There was also the 917L or LH, which means Lang or Langheck, which means long tail, which was used at tracks like LeMans, where high top speed was needed and a slippery, of course, shape was the preferred thing. Porsche 917s could actually reach 240 miles an hour down the Mulsanne Straight in Le Mans, so these were by far the fastest cars at Le Mans back in the day. Strangely though, even though the long tail was the one that was designed to be the fastest at Le Mans, it turned out to be a short tail that won their first Le Mans championship in 1970. So there you go. This particular model is made by AutoArt. It is in 1/18 scale, and there you go. There's the underside of it, and you can see that it is an AutoArt. This particular car has kind of an interesting history. If you have this book, it actually details the history of every 917 that was built, among other things. And this one was raced in 1970 at Le Mans. Then it crashed. Then they kind of took it apart and used bits and pieces of it on another car. Then they took what was left of this car and raced it again after making it into it's basically a second car. And then it was sold to a guy who then made it into a street legal car. Which is why, if you take a look at this model, it has this funky little rear view mirror on top with a little window. I don't know how well it worked, but I guess it was something that could make the car legal to drive on the street. Yeah, it was driven by some guy. Could you just imagine, driving down the Autobahn and this thing goes past you or something like that? That would have been just nuts. This particular paint scheme, they called the hippie paint scheme. There was a long tail and a short tail version with this purple and green design. This particular car was driven by Gies van Lennep, and I actually did get to meet Gies van Lennep and get his autograph at Laguna Seca in about 2008, I believe. And in fact, in 1998, I actually did see this particular car at Laguna Seca. I do have a bit of a history with this car, I guess you could say, because I have seen it. So I think that's kind of neat. Taking a look at the model itself, though, you can see that it is very, very nice. I mean, look at the quality of the decals. Very sharp, very nicely done. The brakes here and the wheels, again, pretty decent detail. Hard to tell, these cars back in the day had those are probably 15-inch wheels maybe. So the calipers are tiny. And probably your Toyota Corolla has about as good a brakes as this car did. And just imagine this car used those brakes and was doing 240 miles an hour down the track in France back in 1970. So it's just nuts. Taking a look at the front end here, though. This is an old model, so it's about, I got this probably maybe 20 years ago or so. So it doesn't have as much detail as some modern models might have, because they didn't have photo etch mesh to put in grill openings like this or whatever, but still very nice quality here, very nicely done. Headlights look great. Again, the decals look great. You look here under the thing here. This isn't hinge, notice, because the regular car wouldn't have hinges. It would just be a pull-off panel like this, and you can see detail in there is pretty decent as well. There's a little I don't know if that's an oil cooler. I would assume so, because 917 engines were air-cooled, so this would be for the oil. There's a brake reservoir and other doodads in there, so again, not bad. Taking a look at the back of the car, you can see, of course, the tubing there, the metal tubing that made up the frame of the car itself. This frame, I believe, was made out of either aluminum or magnesium, or even magnesium aluminum alloy. And of course, it was as light as possible. I think the entire frame weighed something like 90 pounds. And they pumped the frames up with nitrogen to give them extra stiffness, which is just kind of bizarre to think about that. But then I guess if your frame cracked and your frame sort of deflated, you were in big trouble there. The detail here, is not bad. My only beef with any of these 917 models that I've seen, and I've got a couple of others, is they really can't replicate the way these fans look. The fans are actually made of fiberglass, so they've got sort of an amber, translucent look to them that has, you can see the fiberglass mesh underneath, and nothing I've seen just is able to replicate that look. Taking a look here under the bonnet there, you can see the detail there. If you didn't know, cars that raced at Le Mans back in the day were required to have a spare tire, even though there was no way you were going to stop your car if you got a flat tire and change the tire, but that was the regulation that they had back then. Engine isn't hugely detailed, but you can see that it's not bad. Looks like here we've got maybe twin coils here or something of that sort. This looks like an oil reservoir, so not bad for being an older type model there, so no complaints. It's pretty good. Now let's take a look at the interior here. You can see there that there's not much to see, honestly. You've got a steering wheel, and you've got a shift lever there. Shift lever being painted brown because that was made of balsa wood to make it as light as possible. Hard to see the instrumentation, but that's because it's way, way up here. By the way, if you take a look at where the seat is and where the front axles are, you can tell that any driver would have his feet in front of the front axles of this car. In other words, your feet were like the crumple zone at the front of this car, which of course is no longer allowed, a big no-no nowadays, but they didn't really think about that back in those days. They just did what they could to make the car as fast as possible. And let's see here, when you look here on this side, you can see the second supposed passenger seat, which was also Le Mans regulated. Whoever would ride in that, I don't know, but there it is, the second passenger seat to fit the regulations there. Okay, but again, this is a nice model here. It's definitely got a place of pride on my shelf, and I'm really happy with it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and of course if you do, please like the video and sign up for my channel. Take care and have a great day.